Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first live class for the MAP course. That's a medical advanced party course. This is our first time going through this, and we wanted to start off by giving you kind of a background about what this course is, as well as in introducing you to our instructors for this course. So we have Sam Kaufman, the founder of the Human Path and Herbal Medics Academy. Myself, I'm Suchil Kaufman. I'm one of the co-directors of the school. And we have Rick Murphy, who is one of our fantastic instructors who is helping us not only in this course, but to define and to carry out the overall home course, which we will talk about a little bit later. So the MAP course, I'm going to have Sam describe a little bit about what this is all about. This is a course that we felt like was very necessary as part of the austere medicine program, and specifically the home course that's coming up in August of 2024. Over the years of setting up clinics in austere environments, we have found a lot of things that are really necessary in order to make them run smoothly, to keep everybody safe, and to make sure that we have the best, most effective and positive experience, both for our team and for the communities that we're working with. So that is what's behind the course. And now I'm going to have the rest of my staff here. We've got Sam and we've got Rick go into detail to really kind of break it down to you on what this course is all about. Sam?
All right, so I'll share screen and we'll start on the PowerPoint at this point. All right, can everybody see the screen? Okay. So welcome, everyone. It's difficult to put into words how excited we are about this class. I know Sam's kind of had a vision of this for like 30 years in the making with this. And for me, it's a little bit of a lifelong dream too, although I'm 30 years is not quite not quite that long. I'm not that old. But yeah, this is the first time that we're doing this, and we are very excited to bring this to you and very excited for you all to be a part of it. So let's go over what we're going to cover. Okay, so tonight we'll continue with instructor introduction. So Suchil's kind of already introduced herself. I'll introduce myself here in a second, and then Sam a little bit later. We'll be talking about the Scout Path tonight. And this medical advanced party course is really unique. We've had Scout classes in the past with the Human Path, and a lot of that has been kind of this eclectic blend of primitive skills and like stealthy ninja things. And we've always at the Human Path tried to put in kind of our herbal medics flair. So it's a little difficult to define, but I've tried to do that, and we'll talk about it. This is a part of the austere medicine program. So we'll talk about some of the requirements for that. We'll go through learning objectives and week by week what we'll discuss throughout this course. And it's a lot. Very, very packed with information. And then the whole reason why we're doing this course, and that's herbal medics clinical missions and the home, which is our new, I don't know if we'll call it a flagship course or not, but it's a immersive experience where we're putting everything together in one almost 2-week immersion experience. And as always, if you have questions, put those in the chat, and you can email us as instructors. Our emails are in the syllabus as well. All right, so as promised, I'll talk about myself a little bit in this giant wall of text. So my professional background, I was an active duty naval officer and served in nuclear engineering and signals intelligence. That's my professional background. I have a very odd mix of professional experiences, serving overseas as a Korean speaking missionary for my church, and several trips to Japan courtesy of the Navy, and some overseas deployments as well. But I just decided that I wanted something different with my life. So I've always kind of had this interest in outdoor scout skill stuff, just growing up camping in the desert. And I found the human path on one of my duty stations in San Antonio, and really clicked, decided that I wanted to be a part of it. And by the time that I was ready to make a career change, I opted to go into chiropractic because it's a more holistic kind of approach, and I can have that herbal element as a chiropractor as well. So things that I bring to the course are obviously my professional military background and working in intelligence. And then as an avocation, I studied martial arts for a while, and I'm one of those weird guys that studies ninjutsu, which some people say is kind of outdated, but the skills that are taught in that discipline apply very well to the scout path. So you get to hear about that from me. So let's talk about what is the scout path. This is the mission statement that I have come up for what we do and why we do it here at Herbal Medics. So scouts are familiar with all facets of Herbal Medics operations and excel at security and community engagement. They're prepared to lead outreach missions from start to finish. Now, that's kind of the strategic vision for the scout at the human path, but really that could be the goal, I guess, the end state of this course. What do we want you to be able to do? And that is essentially be familiar with all the stuff that we're doing, have you be really good at talking to the community and helping to engage and learn their needs, and then being able to keep others safe when we're doing a clinic, when we're doing advance party scouting the area. And if you've taken any of our other courses previously, notably the core basic, we've talked about these different paths in the human path. And there's this underlying theme of leadership throughout all of the paths. And it's my belief that the scout feels that most acutely, because in order to be a good scout, you have to know what we provide in all of these different paths and then apply it to the community that we're trying to help. And if that's not leadership, then I don't really know what leadership is. So yeah, let's talk about the austere medicine program. So this has been a developing program with Sam and Dr. Pearson for quite some time. And having taken many of these courses myself, is absolutely amazing, the kind of depth that they go into. And this course is no exception. You'll see on the bottom of this slide, and level 2 certification, medical advanced party online is a requirement for that. And this is also the prerequisite for the home, which is we're adding as a level 3 certification. Sam or Suchel, is there anything additional that you want to talk about with the austere medicine program at this time?
Let me say, Suchel can pipe in probably for the exact specifics of the courses. This is the home course itself is the on-site 13-day compilation of everything that we've done, that we do online, right? That this is a new kind of hybrid version that came about because of COVID. Honestly, we were doing, and so, some of you, like Thomas is here, who's not only an incredible instructor for us, but he's also been through many of these courses. Some of them haven't been here, but he's been through the austere, I believe both that we did here, austere trauma, austere acute care here on site. The idea then was to do a 5-day on site, do a 12-week online and a 5-day on site for that. What we've done is really taken in the home course itself and condensed all of the stuff that we're teaching online down into a 2-week, basically a 13-day on-site course. Some of these are actually not, so this says previous levels must be completed prior to attending the home. There are prerequisites for the home that are mostly included here, and Suju can get to this too, but I think there may be a little bit more here than is necessary. So there's 2 separate things. I'm sorry if that's confusing, but basically we have austere medicine program certification. That's one thing. And then we have the home course, which is part of the austere medicine program, but it isn't necessary. You don't have to do all of the austere medicine program pieces in order to do the home program. And the reason for that is there are a lot of people who just want the meat of the matter, which is the home stuff, which stands for herbal and off-grid medical experience. They want that, and they want all the pieces that are that we are going to be covering in that on site. But there's some other pieces that aren't necessarily covered during that home piece that are part of the certification program, such as venomous bites and stings is a great example of that. So there's a few things in here that are not necessarily required for home. Now, for that, for all of that information about the home course, we have an entire home course web page on the Herbal Medics Academy, herbalmedics.academy website. It's got a list of frequently asked questions about where it's going to be held. It's going to be, it'll be in August 2023. I think Suchel accidentally said 2024. It'll probably be in August 2024 as well. But the first one we're doing is actually in about a year and 2 months from now. So August 2023 is when we'll be doing that. It's a lot of frequently asked questions, where we're doing it, what are the, everything about food and lodging and all that stuff is answerable there. And then the prerequisites, of course, are listed there very specifically as well. So you can get all of that there. But the austere medicine program is the home program plus a little bit more that gives us these certification requirements for people that really just want to get the whole thing. There's a little bit more information out there that's just more than really, I think, realistically we need to do on the on-site, on the home, if that makes sense. In other words, it would be great to do a venomous bites and stings course, and include part of that in the home program, but really it's not practical for the austere medicine piece of that, the home piece of that. What's practical is how do we set up a clinic in an austere setting? How do we do wilderness first responder stuff up to the clinic? And then after that, how do we take care of people if there is no higher care? That's the crux of the entire austere program, really. But the home course really gets to the core of that with how do we take care of people if there's no higher care? And then these pieces that you're seeing, and the one you're taking right now, the MAP course, is applicable to everything we do that has to do with herbal clinical weeks, with herbal medics missions, and even with the clinics that we set up at our own clinic here, even just in town. We run a lot of this stuff as well. So you're getting this course right now. This MAP course is going to make a lot of things, I think, a lot more clear about what we're doing and why we're doing it. And I'm getting a little bit off track of a few things that I want to talk about it when we get to week 2 anyway. But I just wanted to kind of give it some perspective and hopefully not add any more confusion in the process. So I'll shut up now, and maybe someone else can take over on that.
Well, you covered it really well. I think that you've said pretty much everything I was going to say, but I will add in that on the prerequisites, which I believe Amy has posted in chat for you, there are links that go to the page that discusses the home course and all the prerequisites that are there and the facts that are there. Perfect. Thank you, Amy. But just to also know, when you look at that prerequisite, some of these courses are bundled together, which means the online acute care also comes with acute viral infection as a part of it. So you're getting 2 courses in one. You don't have to take them separately. If you've already taken them separately, then you don't have to redo acute care or, to complete that course. And the same thing goes for trauma. is the Trauma Online 40-hour course, comes with the Infection and Wound Management course inside of it. So you don't have to purchase it separately. Same thing. If you've already taken it at some other time, you don't need to redo it. But this is the overall austere program is designed to give people an even wider, a wider breadth of skills, emergency birth skills, as an example, I consider to be a critical life-saving skill that I believe that everyone who is in a community should understand how to do, because you're saving not one life, but two. And so when things are in a post-disaster or remote type of environment, or even during the pandemic, these were things that people were considering sometimes for the first time. And the austere medicine program has been born out of a really deep, passionate love of austere medicine and answering the question. One of my favorite questions to think about is, what do you do when there is no higher care? That is what this program is designed to do. And we go into depths and levels that are really unique to these topics, that even for those people who are first responders, the topics that are covered in this program are not things that you would get in a first responder program like an EMTB or a paramedic program, or even doctors who come through. There are skills that are taught here that may not have been part of their training when they went through. So just to know, like venomous bites and stings just being one of many examples where that's a course, or where that's the only thing that we focus on in addition to the other topics that are in this program. So that's why it is laid out this way. As Sam mentioned, the home course is kind of the condensed, the gritty, let's get to the meat of the matter of what you do when there's no higher care. And the overall austere program is the broader spectrum of remote emergency or off-grid medicine. Okay, that's what I have for you.
Thank you, Sam and Suchil, for clarifying the slide, because yeah, I can understand how that, here's the austere medicine program and the home and everything can be a little confusing. So if there are any other questions on that, just type them in the chat and we'll clarify. And again, email is always an option as well. So what are we actually going to learn in this course? So these learning objectives are also on the syllabus if you want to see them later in a different format. But these are not just learning objectives for the MAP online, the course that you're in right now. The MAP is the online portion to prepare you for the home immersion experience. So we'll go over these skills in an online kind of didactic format, and there's a little bit of practice that we can do in a remote kind of format, but you'll refine these skills and continue learning them in the home experience should you choose to join us for that. So as I alluded to with the strategic vision for the Scout Path, we're trying to lead a team of healthcare providers. And so we're going to develop a framework to do that, infrastructure and planning processes to make sure that we're helping you to do that, either on your own or with us. We'll be talking about communications and, whether that's, hey, we're doing sneaky stuff like dead drops, or we're communicating like we are right now, or we're using radios. And we don't go over the radios as in depth as we would with the actual radio, the off-grid communications course, but it's enough to get you where you need to be a scout for an advance party with herbal medics. As a part of your responsibilities as a scout, you may be moving as a team. You may not have done that before. We'll go over how to do that and backup plans. We call them contingency plans. Security is something that scouts are supposed to excel at in accordance with our strategic vision, right? So we'll go over that. And there are some fairly specific and technical skills involved with security. It's more than just That guy looks scary. Now we need to hurt him. And that's about as elaborate as some people get with security, especially nowadays. With the news cycle and everything, it's this fear-based judgment of other people. So we'll get beyond that so that we're actually determining what real threats look like instead of just relying on our biases. So when we go somewhere, we have a bag of supplies. You'll have your personal bag, and we'll develop a packing list and how to pack your bag. In addition to the infrastructure and group portion where we're planning for the group, you need to be able to take care of yourself. If you're a scout, you're an advanced party, you can't be having to rely on other people for basic things that you should be able to take care of yourself. So we are helping train you to do that in this course. Land navigation, so we know how to get around, and that's not just topographical maps. It may be as simple as like Google Maps, but terrain association and just basic land familiarization skills. And then to be able to move around, got to be fit. You're carrying your own bag. So we'll go over how to help condition yourself as well and stay fit. I have mentioned this several times, and it's because it's such a key component of this course, but infrastructure for the austere clinic. What do we need, and how do we prioritize resources? And this is something that we talk about a bit in this course, but Dr. Pearson really drives this home in the austere medicine material, and making tough decisions with resources based on scarcity. And just it can be really hard when you're dealing with somebody who is in critical condition and you're realizing that you're going to use all of your resources, and that you may have to decide that that person's going to die. But yeah, that's a reality that we discuss. Basic camping skills, as we're in an austere environment, so you need to at least know how to start a fire. How to use camp tools, blades. One of your homework assignments is we are sending you a Mora knife and cutting you loose with some sandpaper, learn how to sharpen. And the great part of it is it's a cheap Mora that if you completely ruin the knife and you decide that you suck at sharpening, it's a $10 knife. It's okay. You got some good practice with it. It's not some $200 knife that you ruined. So learning experience, that's the goal of the course. So ropes and cordage, knots, all the camp knots, communication skills as well. So we'll talk about how to talk, in English, how to deal with cultural, ethnic, social class barriers, as well as foreign language barriers, which I've had to do several times in my life, being overseas and working as a missionary, especially. And then the last point here, you get to hear about my intelligence background. How do we gather information and accurately inform ourselves and others about a topic without throwing all of our biases and everything into it. How to do it professionally as much as possible. Okay, so now we'll kind of go through week by week and talk about what we're covering. So first up is
Rick,
week 2. Sure.
could I jump in for just a second before you move on?
Yes, absolutely. Go ahead, Suchel.
And I apologize. I hope that my internet connection in the room that I'm at is a little bit low. So if my signal starts to falter, please let me know in chat. Okay. So the things that Rick was talking about on the last two slides, for those of you who are new to what we're doing here, you might be thinking, I don't know how this can possibly apply to me, like talking about security and things like that. And I can tell you from experience on many clinical trips, both in the United States and also in other countries that we have taken, how important every single thing that he talked about is. So security, just to give you a very quick example here, it wasn't something I think that was thought about a whole lot on the particular trip we were at. We were with a different organization and standing in the capital of Nicaragua, a whole bunch of us standing around after clinical week, a very successful one. And the one guy had all of his stuff, all of his money and his passport in a backpack that he put at his feet. And we're all standing there, just a group of us. And a couple of minutes go later, he's immersed in conversation and he looks down and of course his backpack is gone with his passport and his money in broad daylight with all of us standing right there, and he lost everything. So understanding security and everything that we talked about on these last two slides is something that if you are doing a clinical expedition, whether you are taking part in a medical tourism trip, or you're helping a nonprofit in another country, or you're on one of our clinical weeks, it is incredibly important to be able to understand why these skills are important and how they actually apply to you. So starting off at the beginning of this course, you might be thinking, like, I just don't know why a knife would be important. Let me tell you that it is when you are, as we have been, standing in the rain in the middle of the desert during a unexpected monsoon, and trying to get a covering, an awning under control when there's winds, and being able to get things set up for a field kitchen outdoors. So I just want to let you know that if you're looking at this and thinking perhaps that it won't apply to you, I can assure you that all of these skills are super important. So thank you, Rick.
Thanks, Suchel. So this is the first week of content, week 2. This is Sam's week where we talk about infrastructure. So I will let Sam introduce himself and talk about the content for this week.
Okay, thanks, Rick. And thanks, Suchel, for the great kind of overview of security. It is so important. These are lessons that the idea of security is something that we take so much for granted in a first world environment. And you just, it doesn't take but a couple of times of being in a situation where you're post-disaster, or you're just in a remote area, or you're in a culture that you just, may even be in our own country, but it's a different culture. These are things you have to be aware of. So without further ado, though, let me talk briefly about week 2. And yes, I'm giving all of the lessons in that. So I have a couple of I call them demo videos. In other words, just me talking or demonstrating something or talking about something. And then there's a number of lectures as well. Not to hopefully bore you on this, but I think it's very important that we start this course out by understanding what is the purpose, what is the overall 10,000 foot view of what we want you to take from this. And as Rick has already mentioned very well, this doesn't necessarily mean that you have to jump onto our bandwagon and be part of an herbal medics team. Hopefully you'll want to, and that's the hope, but whether you do that, or whether you have your own organization, or whether you're just a healthcare provider of some sort that's ready to go to help out with any number of organizations that are out there doing that kind of support, this will help you greatly. And the reason it will is because the entire real focus of this is a medical focus. Now, as Rick mentioned earlier too, we ran a core basic course. We ran that for years. And that was kind of an introduction into all these different skill sets in our school. There were 4 basic paths that they would introduce, and medic being one of the major ones in there, and truly is honestly sort of the tip of the spear of this entire school is medicine of any sort, whether it's wilderness medicine, whether it's clinical medicine, whether it's medicine making, whether it's growing your own medicine, whether it's family medicine and birth, all of those things are part of what we do, and really the tip of the spear. So that's very important. So that core basic piece is part of this course. We kind of merged 3 things, really, in my opinion. We merged the core basic we merged the Scout, which we used to teach just the Scout by itself. You had to do the core basic first, then you could do the Scout. And we even had an advanced Scout as well. That was another week-long program. And it's a third piece that hasn't really been taught yet. And that's what we're doing right here. And that is merging in really the entire medical piece of this infrastructure, understanding how to work with a team, et cetera. I've wanted to do this for a long time, as Rick mentioned, but I kind of had, I think my sites were maybe too big in the beginning. And this school used to be, I always say it's like a mile wide and an inch thick on topics. And we had so many topics. It was confusing. Literally, if you went to the human path, you couldn't figure out, like people get confused because there's so many you got blacksmithing, you've got survival, you've got tracking, you've got herbalism, you've got medicine making, you've got, growing plants, you've got, learning how to homestead, all of these things. And it's like, well, I can't even find my way around here. Even though we had separate programs, it was very difficult. And this is kind of where Herbal Medics Academy was birthed out of, was like, just take all the herbal stuff and let's put it on a separate website, just so people even understand that's what we really do. That's the core of everything we do is medicine, right? Whether it's herbal medicine, whether it's functional medicine, whether it's now, acupuncture and TCM, whether it's Western herbalism, whether it's austere medicine, any of those pieces, they're all part of that same big mosaic of medicine. And this particular course here is one of kind of an entry point for the off-grid stuff, the austere medicine, which is near and dear to my heart, near and dear really to everybody's heart who's Rick and Suchel and Thomas sitting here as well. It's something that's very important to all of us to be able to do. So that is what week 2 is, to just kind of give you that 10,000 foot view. What is an austere clinic in the first place? How do we work with the resources we have? There's a little bit more than that that's not captured in these bullet points. That is just figuring out how you're going to get to and from a place, not in detail the way Rick's going to go into it, but what are our vehicles that we're going to use? How are we going to generally communicate with each other? Again, on a general level, Rick's going to get into more detail, but just in a general level, how do we get in and out of an area? What are the things we need to be thinking about there? How are we going to feed ourselves as a team? How are we going to feed ourselves as individuals? How are we going to make sure we have clean water? How are we going to make sure we have hygiene? How are we going to make sure that we have, some security there? And how are we going to, of course, make sure that when our team gets there, because we're the advanced party now, this is the medical advanced party class, the MAP course. When we get there, or when the rest of the team gets there, they're set to go. They're set to hit the ground running, right? We already know what's any of the communication or language or cultural issues are going to be. Of course, we will have looked at that ahead of time. The scouts have done that. That's what you're going to be doing in this course. What are the things we need to look at to be able to integrate with this community and give them the help that they're asking us for? And make no mistake, that is what we're doing here. We're not running into any communities and saying, hey, we're here to help and you're going to do things our way. It's these places that we help are people that ask us specifically for help and specifically tell us we really could use help in this area. Every one of our missions has been like that. And that's why they're very successful, because we go into communities that already want our help. They're grateful for the fact that we're able to give them what it is they're asking for. And we go in and we do it. And and when we say we're going to be there, on Tuesday at 8 a.m., we're there at Tuesday at 8 a.m. We do what we say we're going to do. And all of that happens because of what you're learning here in this course. The difference is all of that was done by myself and Suchel in the beginning. We were the MAP course, right? We were the scouts. And there's a lot of work. And then slowly we started kind of being able to, get enough people that had done it and were familiar with it to where we could start to, delegate a little bit. And then slowly, through the courses as they adjusted, now we're here in sort of this distilled version of what it is you need to learn to be able to do this. And I'm so happy that we can do this, because it means we have students coming through that can go out and do this. And I don't want to get off track, but probably, we are moving to Taos. We're expanding the community to Taos and our campus up to Taos as well. And in that location, I will have a clinic, a day, a full-time clinic, Monday through Friday clinic. And as part of that, there will be internships that I can finally offer that are very specific and very regular, as opposed to kind of this, scattering that we've done before. And as part of that, we will be doing this type of thing on a very regular basis, monthly, to where students who come up for internships can go out and be a part of exactly what you're learning here in the MAP course in any given month, be able to do that and to set up. And I'll have an entire setup. I'm building that right now to where it's literally unfolding stuff out of the trailer that's got everything we need, from water and power and a sink to canopies for clinics and that type of things, where it's going to be really easy to do. But I don't want you to just be lazy and not understand what all goes into that. You need to understand all the pieces and the parts that make that happen. And that is 12 years approximately, give or take, of making, of doing this work, and of course making mistakes and all of that. And so you're getting the benefit of all of that here. And that's really the high level view of what this course is. So, and thanks so much to Rick for really taking this and running with it and organizing it. And, in typical Rick fashion, he's done just hit it out of the park, just an excellent job. So here we are with, these are the subjects that we're going to get into. You can see them, here as well as I can, of course, but I just wanted to add that there's a little more depth in some areas that aren't necessarily on these bullet points, but the overall gist is here, that this is the heart of why we're doing the MAP course right here, setting up a clinic. One last thing, Rick introduced himself. Let me just say briefly, for those of you who don't know, I started off all of this medical stuff in Special Forces as an SF medic, as an 18 Delta Special Forces medic, aka Green Beret medic, which was a really amazing training for me. It's an amazing, opened my eyes, and I was already very much interested in herbalism before I did that. I was already very, very interested in herbal medicine. And so everything that I've done since then has been to try to integrate those two worlds in a lot of ways, both from the clinical side, but also this austere piece. And it's really made me, I feel like the growth that this school has afforded me by being able to do this. And this is, this school has gone through some different versions of itself, for sure. This is right now what you're getting is as close as I can get to giving you an herbal version, or a holistic or a natural medicine or alternative, whatever you want to call it, all the different terms we have for that alternative medicine version of this, that's actually very applicable. Doesn't matter what type of medicine you're practicing. This goes also for Steve Pearson, who is, co-founded this course, this whole program with me, Austere Medicine. He is also a former 18 Delta, former Special Forces medic. About 10 years earlier than I did, he came through that. But he, instead of going the herbal route, he went the orthodox route. And so he got his MD. He was, he's been he's board certified in emergency medicine and family practice as well. And he's been a doctor for about 40 years in rural Utah. So he's got a lot of experience to be able to add on that piece. And his whole piece on this too is just what we're teaching here on the MAP is very, very important. He absolutely is behind all the things we're teaching here as well. And if you do this whole thing and you come to the home course, of course, you'll meet him in person. And if you're taking the austere courses, the acute and trauma, you'll meet him, of course, online as well. And know that we're all really on the same sheet of music here in terms of what is important, how we're doing it. And it kind of comes from that same birthing that both of us had through medicine, through Special Forces medicine.
Is this one me? Yes. Okay. Thank you. I won't get off on a tangent here, but I do want to point out for anyone listening to this or wondering about this, when Sam mentioned the clinic, that when you participate in one of those clinics, for those of you who are seeking your RH through the American Herbalist Skills, this is a type of clinical hours that are so difficult to come by. And these will be available for you, documented hours that you can count towards your RH application. So that is something that is a huge bonus. Plus being able to go on an herbal medic trip into Navajo Nation or to work with Indigenous people in areas that do have need and insufficient medical coverage is, I don't know any other place you can do that. So moving on to week 3, the topics I'm going to be involved in helping with, Rick is going to be helping me on a couple of these, I believe. But we're going to be covering camp hygiene and primitive skills. And again, you're probably like, what is this? Very important is what this is. And if you've ever found yourself in a situation, as we have on more than one occasion, where we've had to figure out things on the fly, having this kind of training is something you'll be really happy about. I came into the school, I mentioned I'm one of the co-directors, and I came into the school shortly after the school was founded in the role of the cook. And I was responsible for making meals for the core basic. And kind of gravitated from there, and then here I am now. But as part of what I did on those early clinical expeditions that we did was, first, when we watched other people handle it, I got to witness what happens when you have a group of 20 some odd people without enough food. And it's not pretty. And it kind of birthed the whole concept of the provider and what some of the topics that we will cover in week 3. We're going to cover the basics of things that you need to know in order to be self-sufficient. So if you find yourself in a position where there's a clinical week or medical tourism, whatever you're involved in, that you're going to have enough skill sets to make sure that you're set and that you'll have things in your bag that mean that very easily you'll be able to work with either, whether it's sanitizing water or making a little bit of food go a long way, or figuring out ways to make the food that you have work and make sure you don't make yourself sick. So in week 2, some of the skills that Sam's going to be covering with the hygiene and water purification, those are topics that Thomas gets into in tremendous detail in his courses when he does radio communication and then water purification. But in this course, we're going to give you kind of a taste of what you need just to get you started on doing the on doing a clinical type of being what's the word I'm looking for, competent in being in an austere environment and doing well. So making a fire pit and fire and campfire cooking. I have some things on campfire cooking that I really want to share with you so that you can minimize the amount of heat that you need and extend your resources. Very easy, a lot of fun, actually, surprisingly, and ways to make sure that you're not eating either absolutely obliterated food that has been burned to a gray ashen corpse that is inedible, but on the other side of things, making sure that you're not eating raw chicken. So there are extremes, and we've seen both of them many, many times, and there's nothing that will deflate the morale of a team that is in the woods that are hungry or, post-disaster, when you realize that the food that you are looking forward to eating is inedible or not safe. So that's what we're going to be covering in campfire cooking, poncho shelters, and choosing camp locations. Also very important. This came up in our last clinical week in Chinle, Arizona, when our field kitchen, we put it in the line unexpectedly of a torrential monsoon that came through and washed everything away. And we had to, in the middle of the monsoon, we had to relocate it and find ways of working around it. So choosing your camp location, super important. Also, of course, ties into security. Sharpening blades and using cutting tools. Rick is going to walk you through that because he's excellent at that. Knots for camp setup, primitive engineering, and clinical application. I'm going to be working with you on some of the knots that are your basic need to know knots that you can use in a variety of different things, whether you're tying down your tent, you're securing something, or you just need to be able to make sure that things are taken care of. So there are some knots that are absolute necessities that we're going to go through here. And we have sent out in the supplies that you're going to be receiving a lot of the things that we're talking about here. Hygiene in an austere environment. One more example, when a different Nicaragua trip that we took, we were in the jungle of La Uva and the water was not purified there. There were tapeworms running through the water that was provided to our team. And one of our team members became incredibly sick, just violently ill. And so that was the same trip that I watched our team not have the food provisions that we needed in order to function correctly. And after that, Sam and I looked at each other and we said, we're never doing this again. Any team that we take into a remote environment, we want to make sure that students understand ahead of time what to do about the water, what to do about food. We're not going to be caught off guard so that students are either miserable or, it can become something that becomes a real serious health issue or a security issue. Your well-being could be at stake if these are things that you're not thinking about from the onset. And of course, my specialty, team food planning. I'll get into a lot of this when we go through week 3. Let me suffice it to say that this is something that you don't think about as being important until it really is. And if you are like me, I'm pre-diabetic, there's a certain point where I reach where I have to eat immediately, like right then. And it's become something that can go neglected. And then suddenly it's a really big issue. It can become a significant health issue for yourself and for the people on your team, who then you are becoming someone that they have to take care of because of poor planning. So team food planning is something that I have never seen anywhere else discussed. I think it is incredibly important. It doesn't have to be something that becomes the 900-pound albatross that you take on your team trips. We're going to talk about a lot of ways that you can be completely prepared and make the experience something that keeps everyone healthy, happy, and able to function at whatever it is that you're doing in the field. Okay.
All right, everybody gets to listen to me talk for the next little while, but I'll go through these weeks a little bit more quickly since we're done introducing instructors. So week 4 is where we get a little more scout focused away from the camp. So in weeks 2 and 3, you kind of learn about like our infrastructure and how to keep yourself fed and happy. And now we're going to start talking about how to meet with other communities and keep them fed and happy. So we're going to talk about community engagement and communication. And most of us, unless you're a hermit, which, you know, no judgment if you are, but we communicate with people every day. And so we probably consider ourselves proficient at communicating. You're waiting for a but. However, there are some specific skills that we can refine as scouts to make our communication more direct and deliberate and very effective. So we'll learn communication protocols for radios, work through language and cultural differences in communication that are potent challenges for many people, and talk about language translation for a little bit as well. Additionally, now Sushil says that her specialty is team food planning, but I would submit that she's also really good with the barter and negotiation side of things. So you'll get to see her lovely face again for week 4, where she discusses barter and negotiation. And last point on here, we'll discuss social engineering, which is something that has been much requested when we've done scout classes previously. And social engineering is very useful in with the scout program. So one of the last core basics that we did, I was kind of there as a student, but also there as an instructor. So I was able to make friends with everybody. And when we did the final scenario, I was part of the opposing forces, but nobody really knew that. So I used some social engineering techniques to embed myself extemporaneously with some groups that were out roving around and were supposed to challenge me and didn't, because they saw a friendly face and somebody communicating friendlily, if that's a word, an adjective, an adverb. And I managed to sneak by their sentries and expose their hideout. So they got to utilize their backup plan because they gave me the keys to the kingdom, essentially, because of social engineering techniques. So yeah, we'll discuss that in week 4. Sam, you had a comment?
One quick point I wanted to make is the language and cultural differences piece. One of the things that if you come to the home course during the first 3 days is what you're doing is basically the map hands-on. So all the things that you've learned here, you're going to get to apply them, and it'll be scenario based. So you'll actually be setting up a, excuse me, my throat's dry, talking too much. You'll get to set up the things that we're talking about, but we'll throw a couple of little scenarios in there too, where language is going to be important. You know, it might not be that everybody speaks the language of the people you have to work with when you get there, and you're going to have to apply that. That slows everything down when you've got to translate, and then of course not just language but culture too.
Thanks, Sam. All right. More to follow in the lectures. So week 5, small unit tactics. So this is not as robust as basic combat training or School of Infantry, or name your military school for small unit tactics. This is very rudimentary. How to move as a team. For those of us coming from a civilian standpoint, you probably haven't done that ever, really. Those of us with military backgrounds have in varying degrees of proficiency, whether that's special forces or combat arms doing it full time, or just doing it as part of training and then going on and riding a desk for your job. But there are some key principles here that you need to understand, and we'll go over those. So rally points get talked about very consistently in this course because we're meeting up as a group. You're doing your scouting, and then we need to come back and gather, and we need to meet up, and we need to have our briefings and go in and make sure that everybody's safe. Small unit tactics is that discussion. We will talk about some of the standard operating procedures that we have in place based on our lessons learned, and also some hypotheticals for worst case scenarios. Because even though a lot of the clinics that we do are in places where people are expecting us and they're grateful and it's planned ahead of time, it may not always be that way. So we'll discuss that a little bit to make sure that we leave no stone unturned. Hand signals, moving with vehicles. So in the infrastructure side of things, we talk about choosing your vehicles that you're going to use and kind of coordinating that. In the small unit tactics portion of that, we'll talk about convoys and positioning cars and what car should be where and why. And the big thing this week is land navigation, and that will be Sam again talking about land navigation. We would like to continue with our 2-day on-sites with land nav, but as we've talked about with COVID and the remote environment, this is a way for us to get this information to you the best we can in a remote environment. And it is something that is very important for you to understand as a scout. Okay, week 6 is where we really get into the security side of things. So in the strategic vision that we discussed, I mentioned that scouts excel at security and keeping the team safe. So now that in the scope of the course, we've talked about communicating and moving and infrastructure for starting a clinic, it's time to introduce some potential danger to the mix. And this week, you'll be learning to deliberately observe what's called baseline behavior and then detect abnormalities based on that baseline. You'll learn how to articulate those abnormalities in a technical and procedural way so that they're understood. And we'll talk about selecting a clinic location with regard to safety specifically, not just the infrastructure side of things where we want running water and a place for our apothecary. Now we're talking about safety. And I have a unit on home security as well. Actually, because a lot of the same principles apply to our clinics and for your benefit. In fact, for this week, you'll have a homework assignment that I won't make you turn in to me because of privacy issues, but you're going to perform a security assessment on your home. to make sure that you kind of understand the security aspect a little bit better. So you'll do that, and then have a rings around your home where you can look at potential egress points if there's a bug out situation. So this is a fun week. It's a very important week, and it's gonna be great. You'll love it. Okay, week 7. This is also a really fun week. Sam, did you have a comment?
Real quick on the security. Sorry, I was answering the question for Cecil too. Just the security thing. Just so people don't get the wrong idea or freaked out by the term security, because usually when we hear that, we think of, military security or police security or anything like that, or paramilitary, whatever. That's not what this is about. And this is really about understanding how to assess your environment, both from the standpoint not just of physical and humans, but natural disasters, natural, even wildlife situations. Back earlier, Sucho mentioned the food and dysentery in Nicaragua. That's a security issue, right? So environmental awareness absolutely is a big part of that. And just to give you an example, I used to do this class as just a really short kind of overview, like maybe 15 or 20 minutes as part of something else, where I would talk about the ideal structure maybe of a clinic in an austere environment. If you had a building, let's just say a rectangle, how we would do it, how we would direct things. And I was giving that class once, long before the austere program. I can't remember what it was in, but I was adding a medical scenario maybe to the core basic. That might have been it. So we had a lot of core basic type students there, and some of them were coming from either military or kind of civilians who liked military type stuff that were there. And we used to do a lot of stuff that was military related or weapon related, but we'd always use airsoft generally. So we had airsoft rifles and stuff in our supply. Excuse me. And so I gave this little class. And then I introduced, and maybe it's a wilderness first responder in the first couple of years. I think that's what it was. And so then we introduced this clinical, scenario. So there was obviously lots of first aid that had to go on, et cetera, but then we had a clinic set up. So I had the security thing, and I mentioned this, this is what really security is being able to identify people as they come in and say, hey, what are you here for? And direct them. It's really more of a helper, kind of greeter, and seeing these things in case there is something that happens, we see it ahead of time. Well, I told them, so everybody gets a chance to set up, have all these supplies that are out there for them to use. And I give everybody about 2 hours to get organized. And that I come back, I went away, come back an hour later. And these 2 guys that were in that class that were kind of civilian, they weren't really former military. They were civilians that kind of liked military type stuff. They'd gone into the supply, the shipping container that wasn't even open to them. I mean, it wasn't locked. They went in there because they knew there was some airsoft. They were walking around with, airsoft AR-15s because they were security. And I was like, oh my God, okay, we really need to understand this concept a lot better. Okay, this is not what I was talking about at all. So just to kind of give some more emphasis to what Rick's been saying there, I just wanted to add that little, anecdote. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. We're not teaching you to be paramilitary with this, and that goes for the small unit tactics stuff too. It's just not really what we're about. All right, so week 7. This is my spies and ninjas week. Really fun. So we'll go through a little bit of a historical perspective on scouts and scout cultures, and then we'll go right into intelligence development. So at this point in the course, you'll have kind of a foundation on communication skills and some time to practice. So we're gonna up the ante with logical fallacies, and getting rid of bias in your information gathering and intelligence decisions. It's especially important to have personal awareness when you're researching topics so that you can remove that bias from your conclusions. And having a logical framework really helps with that, as well as with any research endeavor, frankly. So I'll be discussing in general how you can review information like an intelligence professional to inform yourself or others about a topic of interest. And after that, we'll talk about some intelligence tradecraft along with the scout history discussion to learn how past scouts were able to complete their sneaky missions. At this point in the course, we'll be starting to talk about the final project and the requirements for it in detail, which will encompass all of the skills that you've learned up through week 7, the communication, security, infrastructure, primitive skills, communication. It'll all come together, and we'll be talking about that interactive role play that we're doing at the end of the course to really help you flex your knowledge and make it stick. Okay, week 8. This isn't part of the final project, but that doesn't mean that it's not important. So we'll talk about your scout bag and how to pack it and what to put in it. We'll talk about fitness attributes, both mental as well as physical, that are required to perform scout tasks. Because, well, when you're moving through the woods and doing, scout things with a backpack on, most of us don't do that on the regular. So, just walking around the woods might be challenging for you, but it becomes even more challenging when you have extra gear and weight on your body. And then throw on top of that, if you get into a situation like what Suchul was talking about in Nicaragua, where you're hungry and dehydrated or injured, or you're upset at a team member for some reason, maybe one of those cultural differences. So the mental toughness, physical toughness aspect of this becomes really important in those situations. So deliberate training ahead of that situation really helps to alleviate those challenges in the moment. So one way that we can do that is a scout loop, at least on the physical side of things, a little bit of mental, but I'll discuss creating that and a training plan to assist you in developing yourself for success as a scout, or just success in your daily life. Honestly, you don't have to go and do a clinic to benefit from mental and physical development. Yeah, and I already talked about the final project, so let's move there. So at the end of the course, you'll have an interactive role play that'll give you some information to help you along with the final project. And then in order to complete the course, there's a final exam, which is comprehensive, 30 questions, multiple choice. If you've taken other courses from us, that looks very standard. No deviation there. All right, any other comments on the course material, specifically Sam or Suchul? Good, okay. So we've talked already about clinics and the importance of what we're doing and the passion that we all have for these clinics, whether it be with our friends at Navajo Nation or the clinic that the school's opening in Taos, or some of the stuff that we've done in San Antonio or various locations. the goal of this course is to equip you to best be able to function as an advanced party for these clinics, to go into a community, to lay the groundwork so that when the team that's providing the care, the apothecary, the clinicians, when they get there, they hit the ground running because you've done all the hard stuff for them. And then you can provide security and help out with the clinic, because I think pretty much everyone that takes courses at the Human Path is interested in the medic portion. So there's a picture of me up on the top right, working the apothecary with my lab coat. That everybody thought I was a doctor because I brought a lab coat. Eventually, we'll get there. I'll get some letters after my name eventually. I wanted to take a minute just to kind of talk about the home, mainly that we have a Q&A for the home, because there's been so much feedback and desire to learn more about what this encompasses. And it's something that we've never done before. So there's a live Q&A Tuesday, June 14th at 7 Central that you're invited to attend and ask all the questions about the home at that point. Sam and Suchul and I will be there to answer them, and we are very excited about this as well. Any extra comments, Sam and Suchul, on the home at this point?
I think, Suchil, did you have some stuff you wanted to say about it? I don't want to jump ahead of you. Go ahead.
Sure. I know that we're going to get into a lot more detail when we do our live session on Tuesday the 14th, but just want to let you know, this is, obviously this is one of the prerequisites for that. So you want to make sure to complete all your prerequisites and pass them in order to be eligible to do the home course. But we also wanted to, before I forget, I really wanted to let everyone know that one of the things that we're doing is we cleaned out our apothecary as part of the relocation to Taos, and we have a whole bunch of extra first aid kits and medical supplies and preparedness gear. So I had the idea that I would like to create a preparedness kit, like a first aid kit, to give to students in this course that are specific to the skills that you're learning here. So at the end of our next live session, the second live session, for anyone who's attending and is present at that session, you'll be eligible. We'll do a drawing at the end of the session, and you'll be able to hopefully go home with your own preparedness pack. Or if you're in another state or another location, we'll just send it out to you. But that's, I'm sure Sam is going to have a lot more details about the home course, the intensive, and we have so many things that we're going to cover on the 14th. So I don't want to just repeat what we're going to do on the 14th. Sam?
Thanks. I'm not going to go into too much detail about the home course because we are going to get into it next week, as Suchil just said too. But I just want to reiterate that the MAP course here that you're doing, if you're taking the home course, that first 3 days of the home course is the MAP on site. You can think of it that way. And you'll already have done this didactic, so you'll be ready to start work. And it's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, these are, we kind of always have the mentality of work hard, play hard. We always have. And it really, honestly, with the groups of people we have fantastic students, amazing students, people that are just wonderful human beings. And so, it's never really drudgery work. It's really, it's always teams that are having a good time together and getting stuff done. And that's what the first 3 days is going to be, is practicing through all of that, doing a lot of the stuff like, for instance, the meal prep and things like that. You'll be doing those first 3 days, bartering and working with some people who are going to be role players that you have to, communicate and work with, and figuring out, how all of these pieces that we're talking about now in terms of scouting or reconnaissance, medical reconnaissance, or whatever you want to call it, that'll be part of that, and the checklist you're going through, and even some land navigation, up there. And our new campus will be right there on National Forest. So we've got lots and lots of beautiful, amazing, gorgeous country there, mountain country, to be able to work with as well. And it's not, you're not going to have to go and do a 10-mile land nav course or anything like that, but there will be some land navigation practice, and maybe even a little bit of integrated scenario stuff, to where you've got to find a few things that are, kind of part of it, in terms of like a, what do you call them, a scavenger hunt type of thing, almost type, but, or what do they call that, with the where people put, packages in the middle of the woods, and people go find them. I forget what that's called, but that kind of orienteering stuff too. So anyway, that's all of this stuff that we're doing right now. You'll have a great geocaching. Thank you. And it's funny, there's a place right up there, not far from where our new campus is, where I was doing, we were staying up in an Airbnb not far from there, and I was doing a trail run up one of those trails. And I kind of went off trail for a little bit just to kind of check some area out. And I see this little green box, like just, I can't remember if it was in a tree, I believe. And I was like, what is this? So I opened it up, and sure enough, it was a geocache. So that's kind of funny. Found it without having any idea what I was looking for, just walking by. But, the map portion of this, I think maybe, is probably going to be the most fun in regards to just doing, the cool stuff that's around setting all of this up, and then after that, we get pretty seriously into medicine, specific medicine, right? So, all right, I see some chat coming up here. Thomas says, no 10-mile land nav. It'll be an 8 nighttime nav with full field gear. Yes, and alligators, right. Right, we'll do a special course for you, Thomas. Yeah, we'll all be down at the local pub, drinking some great a brew pub brew and eating hamburgers from when's Thomas getting in? I don't know, probably about 6 a.m. tomorrow, we're thinking, if he does well. No, but yeah, we'll have a good time, and it's going to be you're going to just tons of skills, and have a great time while you're doing it as well. That's about, I think, all I have to say about the home course now. But again, tune in next week on Tuesday for a much more detailed Q&A.
Thank you for everybody for attending tonight. So here's all the stuff that we went over, introducing our instructors and the scout path, going over the austere medicine program, and a blow by blow of what's going to happen with the course and why we're doing this course. As we've said several times, this is a unique blend of things, and it can be difficult if you haven't worked with us previously to understand why we put all these things together. But Sam has said this, Suchil has said this, I've probably even said it in this course too, but there's a very good reason based on experience why we're talking about all these things in this course. And we are so happy that you're joining us, and in this first iteration of this course, and we hope to see you in on-site courses as well. So with that, I'll pass to Suchil for closing remarks.
Especially Thomas, we're going to be looking for you. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight, and make sure that you are, if you're interested in austere medicine, you definitely won't be disappointed. Come to our Tuesday Q&A session. You can ask all the questions that you might have about what we're planning, and especially a lot about what this school is doing and how we're expanding, what we're keeping, what we're not, all the things that are really important to know about where the Human Path Neuromathematics Academy is going from here. And please attend the second session because we will give away that preparedness pack at the end of the class.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for attending, and we'll see you next week.